Well, here is the next project. This tractor here we plant corn with, and the wheels are in tight. We haven't got a lot going on, so what we're going to do is we're going to remove the wheels and we're going to clean all this dirt out from underneath the cab. It's a good idea every once in a while to do this. For one reason, it keeps your wheels so that they will be able to be removed easily, so it kind of exercises those. And it gets the dirt cleaned out from underneath the cab. Now this tractor we seeded alfalfa with, and we had it on the big baler. So we've got a crop growing here up on top of the PTO guard. And if we've got crop growing there, we've got crop growing in underneath the cab. So we'll remove the dual, then we'll remove the inside wheel, and then we'll go on with the rest of the job here. Jared's working on this diller tanker, and the one downfall with these diller tanks is it's got these junk power packs that are on here, and they are real nice for only giving you about 80% of the power you need to get the boom up and swing it over. It's nice and smooth. However, what we're going to do is we're going to delete that system there, and we're going to plug it into the hydraulics that are on the truck. Now when I did the hydraulics on this truck, I made it so that we could use a Husky tank on it, and that is the valves that he's going to be working off of. He's got hoses that he's making for the up and down of the boom and the swing of the boom. What usually happens to these is there is a plastic bearing in between the swing boom and the actual vertical pipe. And what happens is the paint either flakes off of that pipe, or a little bit of rust gets in there, and then as soon as you go to grease it, it creates more or less a break, if you will, and it makes it so stiff that it will not allow that pipe to move. If it takes, say, 800 to 1,000 PSI and say 10 gallons a minute to run that swing boom motor, with it being stiff, it needs about 1,400 PSI and maybe 15 gallons a minute. So it doesn't lack much to overcome that stiffness in that vertical pipe. Now what we've done in the past is we have greased this with a real thin grease. In other words, we mix hydraulic oil with lithium grease, and that sometimes gets us out of the bind, if you will, with that pipe assembly. But usually we always have the problem after the tank is sit for a couple of weeks, and it doesn't help if we grease it 10 minutes before we park it or what, but they get stiff. They work stiff for a couple of days, and then after it limbers up, it's usually pretty good. But he's just going to bypass that whole system by running it off of the hydraulics that are on the truck. Now this one, we've got a valve body on the side. This is not a commercial valve. I don't remember what kind of valve it is, but those are junk. And I don't know what kind of a mess we have up in the cab here, but it shouldn't be too bad. This is the console that we have in this truck here, with all toggle switches for the different functions. However, we have not used this on anything but this diller tank. So as you can see, it's raining, and we're just trying to stay busy until we can do some fourth cutting here. But I'm afraid that by the time we get into fourth cutting, the corn is going to be ready as well. So we'll keep at it, right, Bub?
Yeah.
You having fun?
Yeah.
Bypass that crap.
Yeah, and then hopefully the truck actually does something.
Yeah, there you go. Well, here we go. We've got the wheels removed. Like I was explaining earlier, we're taking and trying to turn a new leaf here. We're gonna go ahead and take our tractor care here to a whole nother level. So you can see we've got a lot of dirt in here that we need to clean out. Gonna get all this cleaned out of here. And once we get this clean, we'll put this wheel back on, do the same thing to the other side, just so that we can completely clean this tractor. With these wheels in tight, we have a hard time getting into here. After we get the cleaning done, we're going to go ahead and thoroughly wash this tractor, wax it, and then we are going to apply, wait for it, a ceramic coating. Have you heard of ceramic coatings, Nate?
No, what's ceramic?
I'm starting to learn a little bit about ceramics. Me and the ladies have been going, I'm in a club now, we're doing ceramics, you know, and I'm starting to learn about that, and oh my God, you would not believe how pristine it'll look like. It'll have like a porcelain finish to it. So I have to learn a little bit more about ceramics though. You know, we make these little clay things and we put them into a kiln and then we paint them, and it's a special paint or something. I'm not quite sure what it's all about, but I'm learning more and more. So once I get a couple more sessions into my ceramics class, I'll be able to know enough about putting these ceramic coatings on. So we're gonna have to get our dust masks on, our gloves, and everything, and we'll go ahead and clean this all out. We wanna make sure that we do not get ourselves dirty at all, because as you can see, this is pretty scuzzy. So we'll go ahead and get after it here.
It would go to the right all the way around, but not to the left.
Well, we've got everything cleaned up on this side of the tractor. We went ahead and drained the hydraulic oil, and we also swapped out the hydraulic filter. Now, all kidding aside here, the reason why we're doing this job is that this tractor needs a set of brakes. Now, when you seen me pull the drain plug out of the oil filter, I had to poke that with a prick because a lot of the brake material has been plugging the filter, and we pushed this tractor through seatings to get done with it so that we could do the brakes after the fact. Now, we ended up changing the hydraulic filter a couple, 2-3 times in order to get the seatings done. and it is a cartridge style filter, and there is a lot of brake material in this oil. Those filters are $170 some a piece, and they do a pretty good job cleaning the oil. Now, if you recall, we ended up doing the brakes on the 7930. We actually got done with that here last night, and we started this here today. This 8320R is just a little bit different than the 7930. It uses the axle for a cab support. So we've got the gantry in here, and we've got a chain hook coming down onto the cab. We have lifted the cab up some, and we have taken the cab mounting bracket that was bolted on top of the axle here. We took that out. There's a bolt that goes up through here. We took that off, and then what we're going to do is we're going to bring the fork over the top, put a bolt down through here, put a strap around the axle, take all the bolts out of our final drive housing, pull that off, and then we'll go ahead and replace the essential parts that we need to go ahead and replace here. Now this here is the pile of dirt that we got out from what was underneath the cab. Now we've had this tractor for a couple of seasons now, and if you recall, back when we set this tractor up to plant corn, we did the same thing. We had to pull the wheels off. We didn't do the brakes, but we had to pull the wheels off to change the wheel weights on it. I don't know if we added wheel weights to the inside or what, but we ended up going through, and maybe that was a 7290. I take that back. I don't think we did as extensive of a cleaning job on this one, but at any rate, we are now ready to pull that final drive off. Well, we ended up getting the final drive off. This is kind of the moment we've been waiting for, because after we tore into the 7930, which basically we went into that brake job just because the brakes were making noise, and the actual brake disc itself was in a lot better shape than I thought it was going to be in. However, this one has had a lot of material getting into the hydraulic oil, and it looks like brake material. We're hoping it's brake material. So we'll go ahead and pull this apart, and what we're hoping to see is a brake disc that is just completely shot. Now, if this side isn't shot, we do have a chance of the other side being shot. We've got a lot of brake material here. A lot of the disc itself is flaked out, sitting on this plate. But again, I would assume that we would see what we're seeing. Yeah, I mean, we've got some stuff. A lot more of this disc has come apart than what the 7930 had. So we've got that pressure plate out of there. I don't know if I can get the piston itself out without a bar. We don't want that falling out. Well, I was expecting to see more brake disc damage or wear than what I seen on this side, but we do have the other side that is yet to come apart, and we're kind of hoping that that brake disc on that other side is in, we're hoping that one is in horrible condition. But you can see this one has got a lot of the material stuck to the actual pressure plate itself. So, or the piston. This is actually the piston. So we'll go ahead and get everything cleaned up. Get this surface cleaned here. We'll get this surface cleaned. Get some sealant on there, and we'll just put everything back together here. Well, we've got this ready to go back together. We put new O-rings in where the piston goes. The piston is setting in there, along with the two return springs. This is the old disc here. We've got some material that is lifted off of it. Other than that, the disc itself isn't in that bad a shape. Here is a new one here, and as you can see, there's not really much difference in how much material is actually on that disc. So we'll put the disc and the shaft in there, then we'll put the backing plate on, then we could put some sealant around this planetary, and we'll go ahead and do the differential case, and then we can put this back together. Well, we've got everything ready to go back together. We overdo the sealant just a little bit because if it leaks just a little, the whole thing's got to come back apart. So we're gonna guide this in there. I don't really have enough room. The gantry is kind of in the way. I know I should have an overhead crane, but the beauty with that gantry, we can wheel it over the top of a job that we're doing and it works. However, it's only 14 feet wide and 14 feet tall. It could be a little taller, but it's not. So again, if you missed it in the last segment or two, we have to have the gantry hold up the cab on this one side because the cab support sets on top of this final drive. So we're gonna try to push this in, get it to line up. We'll see how it goes here. Well, this side slammed right in there relatively easy. The 7930, we had to go out and back in a couple different times. And I'm not sure why that is. I think it was just luck on this one. But we were also hung from the top on this one, whereas on the 7930, I came in underneath the final drive, and this one might have been just centered a little better. But we've got to torque those bolts all the way around that final drive. I've got to put this cab mount back in here, and then we'll clean this axle up, put the wheels on, and then do the same thing to the other side here. Well, we have the final drive assembly. All the bolts are torqued. Before we put the wheel on, I ended up pulling the sump line off. That is right here, this line here that comes from the bottom of the differential and goes up to the feed to the main hydraulic pump. Now I went ahead and ran a wire wheel over the axle, ran tape around the axle where the hub's set, inner one here, outer one there. So we'll pull the tape off before we put the wheel on, but I figured now would be the time to pull this sump screen out. So this tube comes on here like this and just comes around up into here. So we'll just pull this out, clean it. We've got a lot of debris on there. We need to more or less dissect that stuff, and hopefully it's all brake material. We do not want to see any transmission components there. So that's what things look like inside there. So we'll have to get a rag inside there and clean that out a little bit. We can pull that plug as well and get all that out and clean any of the debris that is in there. We've got some real flaky material there, and I can't really say that's all brake material, so hopefully we do not have something else going on here. Well, we've got this left side all done and put back together. We've got this side lowered, got the right side raised. I have removed the dual. I've got that sitting outside. I have this dual hub loose. I'm gonna have to whack it with a sledgehammer right on the end of this axle. That will, of course, break free. We can pull the hub off. Do the same with the inner one, get that off, and then kind of do the same thing to this side here as we did to the other side. Well, we have the dual hub removed. The inner wheel is loose. Now we're just going to walk that off the axle with the little wheel that's in the hub, and these are made to be able to move where you want by just turning that wheel. So we'll use the wrench to pull it out to the end of the axle, wrap a chain on it, and then we'll wiggle it off and then set that out of the way, set the wheel out of the way, that is, and then get into getting that final drive off. Well, now that we have the wheel removed, we can get back to the whole reason why we're doing this. And that is to clean out from underneath the cab. So we blew that side out over there, and we got as far as we could on this side, and as you can see, there's still quite a lot of stuff in there. So we'll get this blown out here, and then we'll have to bring the gantry over, hook up into the cab to hold the cab up, get this cab support or cab mount off of the final drive here, or the planetary, or the wheel hub assembly, whatever we want to call it here. We're calling it about 3 or 4 different things. So, and then we can pull this on out of there, and hopefully we see a lot of damage on this side. Not damage, but hopefully we see a lot of wear, or else we're gonna have to look deeper into hydraulic pump failures or transmission failures. So we'll get this cleaned up, and we'll join back up with you in a little while here. Okay, this is a moment of celebration. We have major destruction on this side here. This piston is wore out almost to nothing, along with this brake disc. I mean, this brake disc has got nothing left on it, and I don't know what we've got left on the actual backing plate, if you will, but this piston here is really thin. I mean, that is do you see this, Jared? Yeah. Wow. So we are glad to see what we are seeing. This the amount of material that we've seen in this filter, and then we of course don't see much damage at all not damage, wear and tear on the other side. This is wear and tear. We rode this just a little too far. Once the material came off of the actual brake disc here, it was metal to metal, and you don't want that. However, it is almost impossible to know how much wear you have on your brakes. I mean, this side here is what you should see when you see the brakes wore and you're to the point of replacing. However, it wore past that material, and then once it was steel to steel, it was just nothing more than a grinding disc working at that piston there. So we'll go ahead and get this ripped apart. This backing plate's not going to have much wear to it because that still had the actual brake pad material on the other side of this disc here. So the piston itself was running steel to steel. So we'll go ahead and get this tore apart. Oh, I said that 14 times now, so we'll join up with you in a while here. Well, we've got everything ready to go back together. We've got the new piston in there. We replaced the O-rings, new brake disc, new backing plate. We've got the sealant on there. Now, on the 7930 and on this one, I didn't have to take the actual ring gear off. However, this one separated a little bit. We had to take this one off, clean it up, put new sealant in there, and we push that back on. That is this band right here. On 7930 and 8320, they did not. They stayed where they were supposed to. I left them on there. I probably should have separated them and resealed them, but we let it alone. So we'll go ahead and put this up on there, get it lined up, push it into place, torque, put the bolts in, torque them, let the cab down, so on and so forth. All right, so we are going to finish this job up in the morning. We've got to put oil in it yet, and we've obviously got to put these wheels on the right hand side. Everything else is done. We've got all the bolts torqued that go around that final drive. We've got this axle stub painted. I've got tape on where the hubs are going to go. We'll peel that off here in the morning. And I also ran the blowgun underneath the rest of the tractor. You can see the rest of the dirt that's on the floor there. And I also drained the oil out of the transmission. We're probably gonna have to do another oil change on this hydraulic system here this winter sometime with how much contaminants were in there. But you know what? The filters do a pretty good job on these tractors that the filters are going to filter out what's there. So on the floor here, we have all of the parts from this tractor here and the 7930. We have the backing plates to the 8320R. We got the left side and then the right side. You can see there's a little bit of a difference in the actual backing plate. Then we've got the actual pistons itself, left side, right side. Right side has got a lot of wear to it. And then on the 7930, we did that brake job on that tractor before this one. And that tractor basically had a lot of brake noise to it. And I was quite surprised that we didn't see more wear on these brake discs than what we are seeing here. We've got the backing plates, we've got the brake discs, then of course we've got the brake discs to the 8320R. Now we've got a considerable size difference in these brake parts. This is a piston here from the 7930 sitting on top of the piston for the 8320. You could see that there is a considerable amount of heft there on the 8R compared to the 7. Same thing with the brake disc. Well, this job is just about done. As you can see, we are putting oil into the system now. We obviously drained the oil out of the sump, the rear end, before we started this job. I drained the oil out of the transmission last night, and then once we got it down level and on the jacks, I let the transmission to continue draining out. We put the plug back in the transmission. Then we also drained the oil out of the independent link suspension up front. That holds around, I got about 4 gallons out of it. It generally holds anywhere from 4 to 7 gallons. The tractor, the complete system on the tractor holds right around 42 or 3 gallons, give or take. So while the oil's pumping in, we'll have to, I'm gonna work on getting tools put away. We'll have to let the tractor run for a while so that it can pump oil up to the transmission and up to the ILS front end. Now, depending on if the do-it-yourselfer is going to do this or not, you can run a bottle jack in under the cab. However, it's hard to get a bottle jack in there, and to make this job a little more dramatic, we brought the gantry in to hold the cab up. But yes, you can get a small bottle jack, because I know I'm going to get some comments from some viewers that, you know, that say that they have done it this way, or they seen a guy do it this way, or whatever. So yes, you can get a bottle jack in underneath the cab. However, before you get that bottle jack in there, you're going to have to fight this side, because it's only going to go in on this right hand side. And with our wheels as tight in as they are, there's a lot of goofiness trying to get that bottle jack in there, but that will work. So once we get, like I said, once we get the oil in there, we'll have to start it up, fire it up, let it pump some oil into the transmission and the ILS front end. In the meantime, I'm going to get some tools put away, maybe run a grease gun around this. I've got 41 quarts in there, and I've got about 80 more to put in. So we have a regulator leaking on our hydraulic oil tank, so pay no attention to that. But we'll just kind of have to make sure we've got no oil leaking out of the tractor here. So we'll join up with you when it comes time to fire this up. Well, we have a fair amount of oil loaded into the system here. We have pumped in 133 quarts. So we'll have to let this run at a high idle so it can pump the oil up into the transmission and the ILS front end. Then we can shut it down, check the oil level, add whatever we need to add to it, and then we can pull this tractor on out of the shop here, get this mess cleaned up, and start on our next project. Just let this run for a little while here. That oil level was up to here, and that has dropped right down. So we'll let that run for a while and then we'll top off the oil level here. Well, we've got 161 quarts of oil in the tractor here. We'll get the hose rolled up and we'll pull this out of the shop and we'll hook it onto the grain drill. We'll try the brakes here as we pull out of the shop. Doesn't look like I have any leaks here. You kind of worry about that with putting the sealant on these hub assemblies, but we cleaned them up real good and we applied more sealant to it than we probably needed to put on there. So we'll go ahead and get this out of here and then we can start on the next project. Well, as you can see from the marks on the floor and from pulling it out of its position here, the brakes are working and we don't have any leaks. We've got to get this mess cleaned up and then I've got to get the chopper ready to chop, fourth cut, and haylage. So we'll kind of show you what other projects are going on here. And then we're going to close out this video. We got Sarge is doing some extensive front end work to the Gator. New ball joints, A-arm bushings, you name it. It's getting done to the front end of this. I think this has got, oh, how many hours are on this old girl? 1,800, I think. 1,745. So we're putting a fair amount of money into this thing, but the damn tires were bowed out on it, and it actually broke a ball joint, I believe, here, oh, quite a little while ago. The 8320R's got 5,401 hours on it, and that brake job on that tractor, just the brake parts alone were $2,700 and some dollars, and then we ended up having to put just a little over 40 gallons of hydraulic oil into it and a filter. So Jared's working on this truck 14 still. He's putting a new housing on there, and it looks like he's out of torch gas. So that is gonna do it for this video. I want to thank you for watching, and we will catch you at the next one, right, Sarge? Are you having fun? Loads of fun, isn't it? Yeah.